I like to be under the sea in an octopus's garden with you.
I think it's going to be pretty lonely in the octopus's garden over the weekend as the water conditions still combine. I'm looking at a photo of 4 lads out on a boat, 5 I should say. So joining us from the Sydney Underwater Gazette, the mighty Marco Bordieri. Marco, how are you?
Good morning, Simon. I'm great.
It's not so much how are you, it's where are you, because you and your Sydney Underwater Gazette cronies so desperate to get under the water you've fled Sydney.
Yeah, we had to escape north. We are actually at Coff Harbors. So it's myself, Steve Coots, and 3 more friends. And the water here is a bit clearer. So happy that we made that.
I saw some beautiful footage of grey nurse sharks. Was that on this trip?
No, that was probably from Longreef. Yeah, there is a dive site called the Apartments. It's off Longreef. And if you move a little bit far away from the coast, the water is pretty clear. But on the coast, you know, in the first half a kilometer, it's pretty murky still.
And in fact, your recommendation for this weekend is not to go into the water at all. It's to do the old school beach combing.
Yeah, I've been getting into it in the last few weeks because we couldn't go diving or snorkeling. So I started walking on the beach as the closest way to get in touch with marine life. And I discovered a new world myself.
Well, and what are the best times to go in your advice?
So it's best to go after a big storm or when the tide is going out because you find more items that are brought by the tide. And with 2 tidal cycles a day, you got plenty of options to look for things that weren't there a few hours before. And also, please bring your bag because together with any sort of creature that you may find, you'll also find, unfortunately, a lot of plastic. So that's a great way to spend some time collecting plastic and looking and taking pictures and not taking animals, whether they're dead or alive, may find on the coast.
It used to break our son's heart when after a day walking along the beach we'd say, okay, now leave the shells there. But really the only thing you should take is the rubbish.
That's it, because everything plays a role. So even for example, the rotting seagrass that you find on the beach, and I live in DY, and sometimes there are huge quantities of that, and the smell is not great. People complain, but the reality is that they all play a role because all those seagrass are plenty of insects, larvae, and other fauna. And when the birds come and they get nutrients, and also birds and other little terrestrial animals break them down. So with the next tidal cycle, everything goes back into the water and provides new nutrients for the fish.
But some of the things you can see and you can even pick up and handle, I love the Port Jackson shark eggs. They just look weird. They look like they're from another solar system.
They're incredible. They look like plastic actually because they are pretty soft and they have the size of an avocado and they look like to me a giant wall plug.
Yeah.
And the shape has a meaning because like a wall plug, they are meant to be wedged somewhere instead of floating around. So normally they are wedged between rocks, so they are safe from predators. It takes 10 months to develop,
Wow.
so they need to spend a lot of time underwater without floating around and be eaten by other sharks.
And normally when we see them on the beach, they're empty.
Yeah, most of the times they're empty. That's why they float. That's why they ended up on the beach. But actually last week, for the first time in my life, I found one that was full, was still containing an embryo.
No way.
So, yeah, so I opened it because basically on the top they're almost open. So I looked inside and there was this wagging tail and yeah, so basically there was a shark inside, a small, was actually a crested horn shark, which is a relative to the Port Jackson. And there was the yolk sac and the animal was alive, was wagging his tail. So I put it back into the water and yeah, it was quite an amazing find.
Wow. So hopefully it went, thanks, Marco, and went off into live into the ocean. Weedy sea dragons are another thing you see?
Yeah, that's unfortunate because normally they live far from the beach and they live in 12, 15 meters of water, but because they have so little locomotive capacity, basically they have very little tail. So as soon as there is a little bit of swell and current, they are brought back somewhere else. And we found actually our community of marine enthusiasts called Bees found six dead Weedy sea dragon in the space from Manly to Collaroy on the beach. So it's unfortunate because they are protected, the numbers are already limited. And whenever there is a storm, they end up on the beach. So it's pretty rare. Likely it's pretty rare, but after a storm, unfortunately, you
Yeah.
may find them.
Marco Bordieri is with us from the Sydney Underwater Gazette. We're not under the water, we're on the beach looking at all the things we can find and the wonderful world of floating rocks as well.
Yeah, the other thing that you may find is pomies, and they are not just interesting because it's a floating rock, which is a bit unusual, and but because they are a raft for a number of creatures. Uh, Pomies is formed from lava that is ejected from a volcano, and because of the pressure, has all these bubbles inside that keeps it floating. And because it's floating, it's a raft. So there are a number of algae, barnacles, corals, crabs, snails, eggs that basically use it as a vehicle to move from a continent to the other one. And that's how you find new species sometimes that are supposed to be elsewhere, just because they cross the ocean using this raft.
But even the seagrass, you can see sponges, sea urchins, all sorts of wonderful things, and they're an important food source for fish and birds. Is it worth going under the water this weekend around Sydney, Marco?
Not really. So the water is still classified by the Office of Environment as possible and likely polluted. So together with the low visibility, some of us has been going to the water. There was like 4 meters in Cabastry Bay mainly. So the suggestion is probably just to do something else during this weekend, and hopefully next weekend we'll have better news.
I wonder what Don says with the surf as well. But for the meantime, enjoying being somewhere where you can snorkel and dive. And say hello to Daniele, who's listening in on the Yellow Fridge Road in Tuscany.
Lovely. Thank you.
Ciao. There is Marco Bordieri from Sydney Underwater Gazette. And if you can't go under the water, you can see all the beautiful creatures that are there simply by going to their Facebook page.